The explosion rattled the whole street. Windows shook, alarms wailed, and every neighbor rushed outside like the apocalypse had clocked in early. Smoke poured from Karen's perfect white chimney, thick and angry, like the house itself was protesting. She stood in her driveway, screaming about faulty firewood. Her hair was half singed, her robe covered in soot. But I wasn't shocked, because I knew exactly what she'd done. You're watching Tomato Tales, where ordinary neighbors meet extraordinary karma. If you love real-life stories that sound too crazy to be true, hit subscribe, smash that like, and let's dive in. Because this one? It's explosive. Life in Maple Ridge Estates used to be picture perfect. Too perfect if you ask me. Rows of cloned houses, white picket fences, lawns trimmed to military precision. The kind of place where neighbors only smile when they know someone's watching. I moved here 8 years ago after my wife passed. I needed peace, not perfection. I thought rules would make life simple. Turns out, rules only make tyrants. For a while, it was good. I worked from home, designing mechanical parts for factories. My backyard became my sanctuary. A shed, a smoker, a few benches, and my pride and joy. A neatly stacked pile of oak I cut every fall. Splitting logs was honest work. Peaceful, predictable. Then she arrived, Karen Whitmore, mid-50s, blonde, and dressed like every day was a court date. Within a month, she'd somehow become HOA president. No one remembered voting for her. But suddenly she was walking the streets with a clipboard and camera like a sheriff in suburbia. Karen loved 3 things: power, attention, and pretending to protect the community. She'd measure grass with a ruler, photograph offending mailboxes, and hand out fines like Halloween candy. The first time she knocked on my door, she smiled like a politician. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "your woodpile violates community standards." "It's visible from the street," I stared at her. "Karen, it's behind my shed." She tilted her head. "From certain angles, it disrupts neighborhood symmetry." "Karen, it's firewood, not a monument." She didn't laugh. 10 days to remove it, or the HOA will fine you." Then she turned and marched off like a judge ending court. I didn't move it. Just restacked it neater. That should have been the end. But Karen doesn't stop when ignored. She escalates. And a week later, when my firewood started disappearing one piece at a time, I realized this was no ordinary HOA drama. Something sneaky was happening under the cover of night. Stay tuned, because the theft was just the beginning. And trust me, you're gonna love how karma stacks up. Should you hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss what happens next? Only on Tomato Tales. The first time I noticed, it was just a few pieces missing. Maybe I miscounted. Maybe I'd burned more wood than I remembered. But 2 days later, it happened again and again. Every other night, the stack shrank, neat, precise, like someone was keeping a schedule. I'm not the suspicious type, but I'm also not blind. I keep my yard cleaner than a showroom and follow every HOA rule down to the letter. Nobody touches my property without me noticing. So I asked around, "Anybody see kids around my fence lately?" Mrs. Jenkins just waved it off. "Probably teens fooling around." "Don't worry about it. Except teenagers don't haul 40-pound logs across the neighborhood in the dead of night." Something was off, so I set up a little test. I restacked my wood pile, marking each log with a thin notch on the side. My quiet signature. If any went missing, I'd know instantly. Then I added a small motion light above the shed, pointed straight at the pile. That night, right around 11:30 p.m., the light burst on. I ran to the window. A shadow glided through the gate, quick, graceful. The moonlight caught something shiny near her feet, high heels. The next morning I checked the yard. The grass was pressed down where she'd stepped, the marks deep and narrow. Heels again. There weren't many people in Maple Ridge who walked anywhere in stilettos after midnight. Actually, there was only one. Still, I wanted to be sure. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the prints weren't hers. Then I found the envelope, another HOA letter. Dear Mr. Thompson, your outdoor wood storage continues to violate Section 3A regarding safety and community aesthetics. Signed, President Karen Whitmore. I nearly spilled my coffee. She was fining me for the same wood she'd been stealing. That was the moment it stopped being funny. I wasn't just dealing with a nosy neighbor anymore. I was dealing with a thief who thought she was untouchable. And if there's one thing I can't stand, it's arrogance dressed as authority. That night, as I stared out at the empty space where my woodpile used to be, one thought hit me hard. If Karen wanted a war. She just lit the first match. I'll show you how I turned my backyard into a trap, one that caught her in 4K and left the whole HOA speechless. Hit subscribe to Tomato Tales, tap that bell, and get ready, because next time, Karma's got a camera. For the next few nights, I barely slept. Not from fear, from focus. That edge of your seat feeling when you know you're onto something. Someone was sneaking into my yard, and I was done guessing who. So, I did what any good engineer with a score to settle would do. I went full surveillance mode. 2 cameras, motion sensors, night vision, cloud backup, one perched above my shed watching the woodpile. The other tucked under the gutter aimed straight at the gate. Hidden in plain sight, the first 2 nights? Boring, just raccoons fighting over scraps. But on the 3rd night, 12:14 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion detected. I tapped the feed expecting another stray cat. But what I saw froze me. Karen, her beige coat, her scarf, and those same high-heeled boots that left prints in my grass. She strutted into my yard like she was clocking in for a job. Calm, confident, flashlight in hand. She stacked my wood, my marked wood, into neat piles, humming to herself. Then the mic picked up her voice, soft but clear. He won't miss it. It's for the community anyway, the community. Sure, Karen. The community of your fireplace. She loaded the logs into her SUV, shut the trunk, brushed off her hands, and drove away like she'd done her civic duty. I replayed that footage 3 times before sunrise, sipping coffee and smiling wider each time. I had her, on camera, red-handed, stealing from me while fining me for it. Now, a normal person might have called the cops or the HOA board. But I wasn't dealing with a normal person. Karen could twist truth like origami. If I accused her, she'd spin it, deny it. Maybe even fine me again for unauthorized surveillance, no. I wanted her to bury herself, with her own arrogance. That afternoon, the community clubhouse was hosting an HOA meeting. Normally, I wouldn't go near one of those. Too many whispers about mailbox colors and fence symmetry. But this time, I showed up early and sat front row. Then, right on cue, she waltzed in, late, of course, holding her favorite mug. Myers a 1 boss lady. She cleared her throat and said, "Let's address property safety violations, specifically Mr. Thompson's woodpile." Her timing was perfect. Too perfect, and she had no idea what was coming. Because sitting right there in my pocket was the video that would blow her fake authority sky high. The meeting turns into a courtroom, and Karen's about to get publicly roasted. Hit subscribe to Tomato Tales and ring that bell so you don't miss the moment Karma plays on the big screen. The room was packed tighter than a church on Christmas. Folding chairs squeaked, papers rustled, and everyone pretended to be there for community matters. But I knew why they'd really come. Karen had a reputation, and any chance to watch her wield that fake power was neighborhood entertainment. She strutted in like she owned the place, wearing a power suit so stiff it could have stood on its own. Her mug, been 1 boss lady, clutched in one manicured hand like a trophy. She smiled that politician smile. "All right, everyone, let's begin." Then she turned toward me. "First order of business, property hazards and rule violations. Mr. Thompson, your outdoor wood storage continues to be an issue." I could feel every eye in the room shift my way. Karen continued, her tone dripping with self-importance. Despite repeated warnings, this pile remains a visual and fire safety risk. I've documented it myself, someone in the back muttered. You document everything. A few chuckles followed. Karen ignored it. Effective immediately. A $250 fine will be issued for non-compliance. You'll have 72 hours to remove the material. I raised my hand. Karen, may I respond? She gave me a condescending smile. Of course, Tom, but please keep it short. This isn't a debate. I leaned forward, calm and steady. Good, because I'm not here to debate. I'm here to clarify. The room fell silent. You said you documented my woodpile recently. I asked. Yes, she replied smugly. Within the last 48 hours. I nodded slowly. Interesting, because in those same 48 hours, half my wood was stolen. The room stirred. Karen's expression faltered for half a second. I kept going. At first, I thought maybe it was kids. But then I checked my security footage. Karen's smile stiffened. That's an invasion of privacy. My cameras, I said coolly, on my property facing my woodpile. Totally legal. I held up my phone. Would you like to see who's been trespassing? Whispers rippled through the crowd. Karen's face turned pale. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I dare, I said, thumb hovering over the play button. Because I think everyone here deserves to see what their HOA president does after dark. She froze. The crowd leaned in. Mrs. Beasley, the treasurer, covered her mouth, Karen stammered. You'll regret this. Then she grabbed her mug, stormed out of the room, and slammed the door so hard it echoed through the hall. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then someone in the back whispered, Guess the meeting's adjourned. Laughter erupted. But that was just round one. Because if Karen thought she could slink away and spin the story, she had no idea what was coming next. She fires back with petty revenge, and I answer with science. Don't miss it. Hit subscribe to Tomato Tales, tap that bell, and get ready for the moment revenge turns explosive. The next few days were eerily quiet. No warning letters. No passive-aggressive flyers in the mailbox. No Karen marching down the street with her clipboard like a suburban sheriff. It almost felt peaceful. Almost. Because deep down, I knew that kind of silence only happens before a storm. Sure enough, 3 days later, another envelope showed up, stamped with the HOA seal. Unauthorized security installations visible from the street. Signed, President Karen Whitmore. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. She'd been caught red-handed stealing from me, and now she was fining me for installing the cameras that caught her. The woman was relentless. That's when it hit me. Logic doesn't work on people like Karen, only consequences do. So, I decided it was time for phase 2. I opened the door to my workshop and flipped on the light. The scent of sawdust and oil filled the air. My second home. My tools sat waiting like loyal soldiers. All right, Karen, I muttered. You like firewood? Let's make it interesting. I pulled out my old sketch pad and scribbled across the top in block letters, the Firewood Project. It sounded official, like something out of a lab experiment. In a way it was. I wasn't planning to hurt anyone. I just wanted her to feel a little poetic justice. Something subtle, something that would remind her that stealing has consequences. From my shelves, I gathered what I needed. A few hollowed-out logs from an old woodworking project, leftover black powder from a 4th of July experiment, and the kind of ingenuity only an angry engineer could summon. For the next 2 nights, I worked like a mad scientist, drilling, hollowing, sealing. Each fake log looked perfectly real, but inside, I packed just enough powder to create a loud pop and a cloud of smoke when burned. Not dangerous, just dramatic. I brushed each one with ash to match the color of the real wood, then stacked them in the middle of the pile, my very own Trojan logs. When I stepped back, I couldn't help but grin. Beautiful, I whispered. A masterpiece of petty engineering. I didn't set the trap right away. First, I had to make sure Karen was still stealing. The last thing I wanted was to waste my art on raccoons. And just as I suspected, a few nights later, the motion sensor flicked on again. That same shadow, that same flashlight beam cutting across my yard. Karen was back. And among the logs she loaded into her SUV were 3 of my handcrafted specials. I stood at the window watching her drive off, and for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. She wanted my firewood. Now she had it. She lights her fireplace, and let's just say things go boom in the most satisfying way possible. It happened 3 nights later. A cold winter evening, calm, quiet, not a leaf stirring. I was sipping cocoa in my recliner when a faint boom rolled through the neighborhood. Then another. At first I thought it was thunder. Then my windows rattled. I stepped outside, and that's when I saw it. Smoke pouring from Karen's chimney, thick and black like a diesel engine gone rogue. Down the street, porch lights flicked on one after another. Car alarms blared. Someone screamed, "Fire!" I walked to my porch, pretending to be just another concerned neighbor, but inside, I already knew exactly what had happened. My special logs had finally met the match. By the time the fire department arrived, half the neighborhood had gathered to watch. Karen stood on her driveway in a bathrobe, face red, hair frizzed from heat, waving her arms like a frantic traffic cop. "It just exploded," she yelled. "The firewood. It's defective. I'm going to sue." The firefighters were doing their best not to laugh. One of them turned to her and said, "Ma'am, your fireplace is fine. Looks like a few of your logs had something packed inside them. Maybe you bought from a bad supplier." "Supplier?" she snapped. "I didn't buy them. They came from—" She stopped mid-sentence, realizing she couldn't finish that sentence without admitting how she got them. The entire crowd went silent. Then from somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "Wait. Didn't she find Thompson for his woodpile?" That whisper spread faster than the smoke. Heads turned toward me. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, trying not to smile. Karen looked like a cornered cat, furious, embarrassed, and stuck. "Oh no," she said quickly. "No, I was just testing them for safety purposes. HOA protocol." "Protocol?" Another neighbor chuckled. "At midnight?" The laughter grew low and contagious. Karen stomped her foot like a toddler. "You'll all regret mocking your HOA president," she shouted, but no one was listening anymore. The firefighters gave her a friendly wave and said, "Next time, ma'am, maybe stick to store-bought firewood." They left. The neighbors dispersed. The smell of burned powder lingered in the air like poetic justice. I leaned against my railing, took one deep breath and let the smile out. "Guess the firewood project was a success," I whispered. But little did I know, that small explosion was just the start. Karen wasn't done yet. She was humiliated, furious, and desperate to get even. And what she did next made the first explosion look like a sparkler. You'd think after a mini explosion in her own living room, Karen might have taken a break from her crusade. But no. If anything, it only lit a fuse under her ego. For a week, she avoided eye contact. No smug waves, no clipboard parades, no passive-aggressive notes. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd learned her lesson. Then came the envelopes. 1, then 2, then 5, each stamped with the HOA logo, like little paper bombs. Unauthorized camera installation visible from public property. Improperly painted mailbox in shade variants from HOA standard palette. Potential safety hazard, uneven driveway, stone. Each one signed with the same looping cursive. President Karen Whitmore. It was laughable. She was trying to drown me in fines. A revenge campaign wrapped in official language. I could have gone to the county office and fought it legally. But where's the fun in that? So instead I got creative. First I started paying her fines. Every single one. But instead of mailing checks, I delivered them in person. small envelopes stuffed with exact change, mostly nickels and dimes. At first, she thought I was bluffing. The third time I showed up, she opened her door with that tight smile. "Can I help you?" "Just dropping off my payment," I said cheerfully, handing her a rattling envelope. She frowned. "This is ridiculous." "Oh, I agree," I said. "But the bylaws say payment must be made directly to the HOA president." Her eye twitched. By the fifth delivery, she looked ready to explode. "You think this is funny, don't you?" I leaned in just enough to let the smirk show. "No, Karen, I think it's fair. You write the rules. I just play by them." She slammed the door so hard the blinds shook. That night I caught her pacing on her porch, phone pressed to her ear. She was furious, whispering to someone, throwing her hands in the air. I couldn't hear the words, but her body language said it all. She was losing control, and the neighborhood was starting to notice. A few residents who used to fear her now stopped me on their walks. "Hey, Tom," one said, "is it true she fined you for your mailbox color?" I shrugged. "Apparently beige and light sand beige are two different worlds," they laughed. And word spread. For the first time, the power balance had shifted. But Karen wasn't the kind of person to accept defeat quietly. She was planning something. I could see it in the way she smiled when we passed each other. That fake, calm grin of someone who's already setting the next trap. And oh, she did set one. But what Karen didn't realize is that while she was plotting her revenge, I was recording everything. Her lies start to unravel, and the whole neighborhood turns against its queen. For a while, it was like living in a soap opera written by someone with too much free time. Every day brought a new rumor, a new story about me, whispered just loud enough for me to hear. Tom's got hidden cameras pointed at everyone's houses. Tom's been hoarding illegal materials in his shed. Tom's threatening the HOA board. Classic Karen tactics. Lies wrapped in fake concern. The thing about gossip, though? It's fragile. All it takes is one spark of truth to burn it all down. And that spark came sooner than she expected. See? I'd upgraded my security cameras again. Not just around the yard this time, but covering my entire property line. After the Firewood fiasco, I wasn't taking chances. One afternoon, I caught her standing on the curb outside my fence, snapping photos like a paparazzi on assignment. She zoomed in, zoomed out, circled my gate, and muttered to herself. I stepped outside, calm as ever. "Afternoon, Karen?" She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. I'm conducting an inspection." "Of my driveway?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "We've received reports that your lighting fixtures violate HOA brightness standards." I nodded. "Really? Interesting?" "Because I installed those last year. Under your approval." For once, she didn't have a comeback. She just spun around and stormed off. Later that night, the HOA group chat, which she'd ruled over, like a dictator, lit up. Someone posted screenshots of her inspection. Photos. Someone else asked why she was trespassing on multiple properties. By the next morning, half the neighborhood was questioning her authority. "Karen, do we even have proof Tom did anything wrong? Why are we focusing on one homeowner instead of fixing the potholes? Didn't her house explode last month?" It spread like wildfire. People who used to bow to her rules started laughing behind her back. The power she built on fear and fines was crumbling, and she could feel it. At one point, she came storming to my driveway, red-faced and shaking. "You think this is funny, don't you?" she snapped. "You've turned the entire neighborhood against me." I smiled softly. "No, Karen, you did that all by yourself." Her hands balled into fists. "I'll prove it. I'll find something on you. Everyone has skeletons." Then she marched off, and that's when I realized something. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was desperate, and desperate people, they make mistakes. The next one she made would be her biggest. The kind that doesn't just break reputations. It ends them. Karen crosses a line she can't walk back from, and the entire HOA finally turns against its queen. Smash that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, because next time on Tomato Tales, karma isn't knocking. It's kicking the door down. It was close to midnight when I heard the sound, faint but distinct. The soft squeak of my gate hinges. I froze, mug halfway to my lips. Then came the crunch of footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. I set the mug down and checked the monitor on my desk. The screen flickered to life. And there she was. Karen, dressed head to toe in black like she was auditioning for a spy movie, flashlight in hand, creeping through my backyard. For a moment, I just stared. This was it. The moment she'd go from petty tyrant to full-blown criminal. I watched as she crouched near my shed, whispering to herself, "He's hiding something. He has to be. Cameras, firewood, something illegal." She pulled out her phone and started snapping photos through the shed window. What she didn't realize was that the second she opened that gate, my cameras triggered an automatic alert, with audio. Every word she said, every step she took was recording straight to the cloud. I stepped outside quietly, keeping my phone in hand. The cold air bit at my face as I approached the fence. "Can I help you, Karen?" She jumped like she'd been struck by lightning, spinning around with wide eyes. "Tom, you startled me." "I could say the same," I replied. "It's a little late for HOA inspections, isn't it?" She straightened up, forcing that fake authority tone. "I was investigating a complaint. On my property?" "Well, yes, there have been concerns about unlicensed storage materials and—" "Karen," I interrupted, calm but firm. "You're trespassing." "At midnight." "With a flashlight," her face twitched. "Don't you dare threaten me." "I'll call the police." I tilted my head. "Oh, please do. I'd love to show them the footage." Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked around like she was realizing, maybe for the first time, that the neighborhood wasn't hers to command anymore. "Leave," I said quietly. "Before this gets worse." She hesitated, trembling, part fury, part fear, and finally stormed out through the gate, muttering something about lawyers and evidence. The next morning, I didn't even have to do anything. The video hit the HOA chat before I'd finished breakfast. Someone leaked it. How, I'll never know, but I have my guesses. Within an hour, it had spread to the entire community. Karen, the self-proclaimed guardian of Maple Ridge, caught trespassing in the middle of the night, muttering conspiracies, flashlight in hand. The comments rolled in faster than I could read them. So the rules don't apply to her? I knew something was off with that woman. Time to vote for a new HOA president. By sunset, her reputation was ashes, but Karen wasn't done yet. Her final act of revenge will push this story past the point of no return. You know that moment when someone realizes they've lost everything? You can see it in their eyes. That mix of anger, panic, and denial fighting for space. That was Karen. After the trespassing video went viral in our HOA chat, she vanished for 2 days. No patrols, no morning jogs with her clipboard, no smug comments about community standards, just silence. Then out of nowhere, she showed up again, but not the same Karen. She stormed through the neighborhood like a storm cloud in heels, pounding on doors, shouting that the footage was fake. "It's edited," she screamed. "He's framing me. You're all sheep." Everywhere she went, curtains shifted and doors quietly locked. When she reached my house, I already had my camera rolling. I'd learned by now. Everything with her needed evidence. She banged on my door so hard I thought she'd crack it. I opened it slowly, calm as a lake. "What do you want, Karen?" Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice trembling with fury. "You ruined me. My friends won't speak to me. The HOA board suspended me. Do you think this is funny?" I met her gaze. No, I think it's justice. Justice? She hissed. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You think you're some hero? Karen, I said quietly. You humiliated yourself. All I did was press record. She pointed a shaking finger at me. I'll sue you for defamation. For harassment. You'll regret this. Go ahead, I said. The footage is public record now. Good luck convincing anyone. She froze, that realization hitting her like cold water. There was nothing left to twist, no one left to intimidate. Then her voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to have everyone laugh at you? To lose everything. For a second. Just a second. I saw something human in her eyes. Fear, regret, maybe even shame. Then she spun around and stormed off, muttering curses into the wind. By that evening, half the neighborhood had posted statements removing her from the HOA presidency. The vote was unanimous, but Karen didn't take it quietly. Oh no, she fired off mass emails claiming corruption, accusing the HOA of conspiracy, even threatening legal action. She was spiraling, a sinking ship clawing at the surface. And then she made her final mistake. Late that night, she sent a message to every resident, a final statement full of rage and denial. But instead of sending it as an email, she accidentally posted it publicly on the neighborhood's Facebook group. The entire town saw it. Every insult, every paranoid rant, every ounce of her fury, laid bare for the world to see. Within an hour, her account was gone. Karen Whitmore had officially self-destructed. But here's the thing about stories like this. Even when the villain falls, the echoes don't fade right away. I'll show you what happened after the smoke cleared, and how karma came full circle in a way no one saw coming. After that night, Maple Ridge felt different, quieter, lighter. For the first time in years, you could take a walk down the street without feeling watched. No one was measuring lawns. No one was photographing fences. Kids played basketball in driveways without getting fined for noise violations. It was like the whole neighborhood had taken a deep breath. Karen's Facebook meltdown had gone local viral, shared, commented on, laughed at. Within 24 hours, she'd deleted every account she owned. Her name became more of a warning than a person. Careful, or you'll pull a Karen. The HOA board held an emergency vote that weekend. Unanimous decision. Karen Whitmore was officially removed from office. I didn't attend the meeting. Didn't have to. Word traveled fast. Apparently, when the board delivered the decision to her doorstep, she tried to slam the door in their faces, but the papers were already filed. Her reign as president of perfection was over. For days after, she stayed inside. Curtains drawn, yard unkept. Her once perfect lawn turned patchy. Her mailbox leaned a little crooked. Poetic justice, if I've ever seen it. Neighbors whispered about selling her house, moving away, starting fresh somewhere new. I didn't care. For me, it wasn't about winning. It was about peace. And for the first time in years, I finally had that. I spent my evenings back in my workshop, fixing things that actually mattered. I rebuilt my woodpile, neat, steady, honest. This time, no hidden tricks, no traps. Just good oak stacked clean. Sometimes, as I worked, I'd hear the faint sound of Karen's TV from across the street. She never said a word to me again. But the funniest thing? The same neighbors who once looked at me with suspicion started waving again. Real waves, is not the forced ones. They'd stop by, ask about projects, trade small talk. Maple Ridge wasn't perfect anymore. And maybe that was the point. The rules didn't vanish, they just became human again. I guess sometimes a neighborhood has to burn down a little to remember what warmth feels like. But just when I thought it was over, one last twist surfaced. A letter unmarked, no return address. And inside, something that made my blood run cold. The story takes one final turn, because some people just can't let go. Hit subscribe to Tomato Tales, tap that bell icon, and don't miss the shocking finale where karma delivers its last punch. A few weeks passed. Winter started to fade, and with it, the memory of Karen's chaos. Maple Ridge had gone back to normal, or at least our version of normal. One Saturday morning, I walked out to grab the mail. Bills, flyers, the usual junk, but tucked between them was one envelope that didn't belong. No return address, no stamp, just my name. Handwritten, neat, deliberate. My gut tightened. I tore it open, half expecting another HOA notice out of habit. But inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature. Just one line, written in the same elegant cursive I'd seen on hundreds of HOA fines before. You may have won, but I never lose. I froze. My hands went cold. I looked around instinctively. Quiet street, empty sidewalks, nothing out of place. But something in the air felt off. Was it a threat? A warning? Or just her way of saying she couldn't stand being forgotten? I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't call the cops. Instead, that night I reviewed all my camera footage again. Nothing, no intruders. No movement near the mailbox. Whoever left that note knew how to avoid being seen. Still, I had my suspicions. 2 days later, I saw her car, old, scratched and packed to the roof with boxes, parked on the edge of the street. Karen, she stood in her yard, staring at her house like it was both her kingdom and her prison. Then she turned, got into the car, and drove away. No wave, no goodbye. She didn't even glance my direction. That was the last time anyone in Maple Ridge saw her. Rumor has it she sold the house to a quiet young couple. Someone said she moved a few towns over, started volunteering at a community center. Others said she never adjusted, that she kept trying to start new HOAs wherever she went, only to get shut down again. As for the letter, I kept it, tucked it in the back of my desk drawer, a little reminder of what happens when control becomes obsession. Because in the end, Karen didn't lose to me. She lost to herself. But there's one last chapter to this story. One that isn't about revenge or rules. It's about I'll tell you what I learned from the chaos, and how one neighbor's downfall taught an entire community what peace really means. Don't forget to subscribe to Tomato Tales, hit that bell icon, and join me for the final part, where this story finally comes full circle. It's strange, the silence that follows chaos. For so long, every creak of my gate, every rustle in the bushes, every letter in my mailbox carried tension. But now, there's peace, real peace, the kind you don't notice until you realize it's been gone. Karen's house sold quickly. The new owners, a young couple with a golden retriever and more potted plants than sense, moved in just as spring hit. They waved when they saw me, asked about trash pickup days, and baked cookies for the neighbors. No power trips, no fines. Just normal people trying to live normal lives. Sometimes when I pass their porch, I still see the faint marks on the wood where her One Boss Lady sign used to hang. A ghost of control, erased by time and sunlight. I won't lie, there are moments I wonder what became of her. If she really moved on. If she learned anything. Or if she's out there somewhere, clipboard in hand, trying to rebuild her empire one mailbox at a time. But then I remember something my grandfather once said. Control is an illusion. The tighter you hold, the faster things slip through your fingers. And Karen? She held tighter than anyone I've ever met. What she never understood was that rules don't make a community. People do. Respect, empathy, laughter, the small things. Those are what hold a neighborhood together. Since she left, Maple Ridge has changed. People started helping each other again. The guy next door painted his shutters purple just because he liked the color. Kids built a treehouse in a yard that would have earned a fine before. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart. If anything, it finally felt alive again. As for me, I stopped fighting ghosts. The cameras still run. Old habits die hard. But I spend more time behind a hammer than a lens these days. Building instead of defending. Because sometimes revenge feels good, but peace feels better. So if there's one thing I learned from this whole mess, it's this. You can't control the world, but you can control how you respond to it. Sometimes that's all the power you really need. This was the story of the HOA nightmare, when power turned to ashes. If you've been here from the start, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to Tomato Tales, tap that bell icon, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if Karen lived on your street? Because who knows? Maybe the next story's already happening somewhere down your block.